Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. During our series so far, we have covered a range of important topics, all to do with co-production. The aim of these sessions has been to support more organisations in both the sports sector and disability sector to understand the basics of co-production, as well as sharing good practice on effectively embedding co-production into practice. During today's webinar, Liddie Bone, Get Yourself Active Project Manager, will be taking you through some of our top tips for co-production as a way of summarising and bringing this first series of webinars to a close. Although we are bringing this series to a close, it doesn't mean it's the end of our Get Yourself Active webinars. We will be continuing to host around once a month after this. Just to tell you a bit more about us, Disability Rights UK is a user-led pan-disability charity. We exist to build leadership and power amongst disabled people to create a movement for change. Our charitable objectives include breaking the link between disability and poverty and enabling disabled people to achieve independence and control over their own lives. The majority of our staff and trustees also have lived experience of disability. Get Yourself Active is a programme funded by Sport England and led by Disability Rights UK. We work alongside disabled people to lead change in the social care, health and sports sectors in order to improve health and wellbeing outcomes for disabled people. Co-production is a really important part of the work we do, and we are working closely with other disabled people's user-led organisations and the sports sector to embed co-production in practice, ensuring that the sports sector works effectively with disabled people to co-produce solutions to inactivity. We also record all our sessions and upload them onto our Get Yourself Active website, so feel free to visit our website for the dates of any future webinars and to watch recorded sessions after they are live. Just to let you know, as this is only a short session, we will not be doing any Q&A at the end of the presentation. However, we will be hosting a specific Q&A session on the 5th of August, featuring some of the presenters from the last 2 months. Feel free to book onto this session using the registration link, which I will post into the chat shortly. I will also add Liddie's email address, and we would encourage you to submit any questions that you would like answered during the Q&A session. I'm going to stop talking now and will pass over to Liddie to begin the session.
Thank you, Anna, and hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. So as Anna mentioned, my name's Liddie and I am the project manager for Get Yourself Active. So today's webinar is all about the top tips for co-production. We thought this would be a good way to finish our series that we've been running over the last couple of months, summarising some of the points we've already spoken about and also giving our top tips for making co-production happen in practice. Of course, we could probably run a whole day-long course just talking about the tips for co-production. And as this is only a short 15 to 20-minute presentation, we're just going to cover and summarise a few of what we think could help. And I hope that you find them useful. We've sort of focused on covering some more practical elements that can make co-production happen in practice. So just to start then, the first tip that we've got is to remember the basics. So a few things that can help co-production to go well are those basic practical things that we may sometimes not give much thought to: location, food, and making it fun, just to name a few. These things may seem obvious or even sometimes unimportant, but they are really helpful things to think about as they can put people at ease and make them feel more included and confident, which helps build those positive relationships which are so important for co-production. It's important to create the right environment where people can be at their best. Taking the time to understand who's who and what brings them to your work helps unlock what matters to and motivates them, and helps others understand their point of view. So simple measures if you're hosting an event are things like giving everyone a name badge, having someone to meet and greet people, using icebreakers, covering people's travel costs and offering free tea and coffee. These are all things that go a long way to make people feel welcome and included. Providing refreshments is also a really simple way of putting people at ease. Sometimes the best conversations come from sitting around with a cup of tea and some cake. I don't know about you, but when I've been to events myself, some of the best conversations I've had have been sort of in the breaks over a cup of tea, when you're getting that chance to sort of connect with people. So even though these are such basic things, it's really important to have a think about them when you're hosting any events. Meeting in a place where people involved can feel comfortable is also really helpful. So this could mean meeting in a place they are used to, or going out to see people rather than asking them to come to you. You could also make sure you ask people what time of day suits them best and come to a mutual agreement. You don't want to agree a time that really doesn't suit people, or where they might not be able to engage in conversations because it's not sort of the right time for them. So the next tip we've got is make sure you make it accessible. So this is a practical aspect that you will need to consider in making sure that you make everything accessible to those involved. You want people to be able to get involved as much as possible and not to face any barriers that may prevent them from sharing their views or getting stuck into conversations. So here are just a few of the points that I've put across to ensure accessibility. Things like checking the timing and length of your event, and that is appropriate to the needs and the lifestyle of the people you want to reach. So for example, some people may struggle with early mornings, so you might need to hold events later in the day. Choosing a venue that offers people easy access, that is also served by good public transport. As I mentioned earlier, meeting in a place people are already going to could be a useful start and make them feel more comfortable. Having regular refreshment and rest breaks at any events that you're holding. This might seem like a small detail, but it can really help to increase engagement and get the best out of any events you might be hosting. Invite people to bring someone with them if they feel anxious about participating for the first time or about travelling. And I think you should as well make sure that you make this clear, because some people might assume they're not allowed to bring anyone with them. But if you make it clear, this can really make them feel more comfortable. You could offer training such as IT skills, which might make tasks more accessible to people who use services. Also things like providing a British Sign Language interpreter or induction loop facility for people with hearing impairments. And as well as thinking about accessibility during events you're hosting, it also should be an ongoing thought that you think about how things are accessible to people. Think about things like providing documents in large print or easy read format, and also using plain language and avoiding unnecessary jargon. So that means really giving thought to what you're talking about, and if there's any sort of wording you're using that other people who aren't as involved in the work might not understand. If you haven't already, I'd really recommend catching up with our Tools for Co-Production webinar that we held last week. Dr. Robert Townsend gave a few good examples of work he has been involved in and how he has ensured that he made documents such as consent forms accessible to people involved in the work, and he gave quite a few good tips. There are also further things, of course, at the moment to think about with accessibility during a time when we are holding a lot of meetings online. Whichever online platform you use, you need to make sure people are able to use it and that it is as accessible as possible so that everyone can be involved in discussions. Make sure you have a read of our guide to co-producing during the coronavirus outbreak if you would like to read any of our tips specifically around accessible online meetings. So the next tip we've got is to be creative. So you need to be creative in all aspects of co-production. This includes how you find people to engage with in the first place. If you work in the sports sector, you can of course engage with people who already attend activities, but don't forget those people who might not be active for various reasons. They could provide a different and interesting insight that can help you to develop your activities and involve a larger number of people. It's been invaluable linking up with a variety of different disabled people's youth-led organisations as part of our work on the Get Yourself Active programme, which has helped to connect with disabled people who may not currently be active. Our approach showed that a co-production process provided disabled people's youth-led organisations and physical activity providers with an opportunity to pool their expertise in addressing barriers to physical activity participation. So as well as these local disabled people user-led organisations, you could also think about engaging with other sort of services in the community. So places like local support groups, faith groups, people who have strong links to their communities, day centres, local charities, schools, colleges, hospitals, community centres. You could advertise in libraries. There's so many places that you can sort of make links with and sort of, you know, make those get engaging with people. You could also use your communications department, if you have one, to help you to make some of these links to different services. And there may also be people in your team or colleagues who have done similar work who can give you a bit of advice as well. So as well as being creative in how you find people and involve people, you also need to be creative in sort of how you're engaging with people as well. So if you're involving people and getting them to attend formal meetings, these can be quite intimidating or boring for people. And so you need to be creative and find that balance between what you want to achieve and adding an informal feel to the meeting. So if you think about meetings you've attended yourself, think about the ones where you felt most comfortable, and these are probably ones that have had more of an informal sort of feel to them, or meetings where you've been able to sort of get involved in different activities and have those conversations with people. Getting people involved in fun activities can really help them to build trust and make them feel more comfortable, which then means better engagement in the long term. So the next tip we've got is remember that everyone is in it together. So when you're taking part in co-production, think doing with, not doing to, every step of the way. Co-production is about being a team. It's a way of thinking, being and relating, and it usually requires a shift in mindset to include and consider people as equals. Learn to share this power. Doing things differently means we can work across a whole range of issues that confront us. Building the right relationships with people is key and is at the heart of good co-production. Co-production can only happen when there is trust, respect, and understanding between people. Put as much time as possible into this process and get to know the people you are working with. One good way to start could be to start conversations without an agenda and build an agenda with the people who use your service, their carers and families. People who use your services and their carers know what works, so you can't get it right without them. And don't take responsibility for solving every problem yourself. Allow the group to find collective solutions because, as I mentioned earlier, you're all a team. They should also be involved in all aspects of the development of services, the planning, development and delivery of the service. One good way as well in sort of building these relationships and keeping people involved is to keep people informed every step of the way. You can update people regularly, even if the update is that there is no update. Often a major complaint from people is that they get involved in a piece of work and then might not hear anything again. No communication is bad communication, which can leave people feeling, really sort of disrespected. And it's good just to keep in contact with people every step of the way and really include them. So the next and final tip for today is take a chance. Accept that sharing power means taking risks. Things can go wrong, so be prepared to reflect and make changes. We all know things can go wrong, even with the best of intentions and careful planning. Making mistakes is a normal part of any new process, and this includes co-production. It can take time to understand the right format that works for everyone involved, and you'll always find a way you'll do it differently next time. Be prepared to assess how well things are going and make changes if needed. And don't be afraid to stop or change if things are no longer working. Processes need to evolve as the project evolves. And remember that things that look good on paper don't always work out well in practice. Jane McGrath, who leads on work by We Co-Produce, which is an independent organisation for people who care about the future of healthcare in the UK, has spoken quite frankly about some of the issues that you may encounter when taking part in co-production. She mentioned that there may be tricky relationships as everyone learns to work together. However, what really counts in co-production is learning how to disagree well and constructively. So as a team, you're not always going to agree on every aspect of your work, but learning how to sort of work through these relationships is key. There is unfortunately no roadmap for co-production. The process will look differently in each project or piece of work, but navigating these tricky relationships is the stuff of genuine co-production. The initial difficulties are part of what happens when you walk the co-production walk rather than talk the talk. It's how you work through it, how you stay within the space, that plants the seeds of real change. So that was a quick tour of some of the tips for our co-production and making it happen in practice. But as Anna mentioned at the start, you can look back at any previous webinars if you want to go through anything in a bit more detail. I'll pass over to Anna now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Liddie. That was a great overview of the top tips for co-production and a great way of rounding up the first series of webinars ahead of our Q&A session. If you'd like to book onto any future webinars, including the Q&A session on the 5th of August, please find the registration link which I've posted in the chat. And we are also really pleased to be welcoming International Mixed Ability Sports to host a session on co-production in practice on the 12th of August. We are still looking for other organisations that have some examples of good practice in co-production approaches or case studies so that we can demonstrate co-production in practice. If you have any examples that you'd like to share or know of any organisations, please let Liddie know by email. This would be really useful. And again, I've posted Liddie's email address into the chat box. When you exit, you should be sent to a page with a quick survey to complete. If you could just take 2 minutes to complete this, we'd be really grateful, as this is going to be useful for developing and rolling out our co-production training in the future. And it is a new survey for each session, so even if you have completed a survey before for a previous webinar, please do complete the survey this week. Thanks again for taking part, and we hope to see you for our Q&A session on the 5th of August and for the session to be presented by International Mixed Ability Sports on the 12th of August. Bye for now.